Happy Wednesday. Hope your week is going by well. Um, one thing I was just thinking about was like last night I finished watching Avatar, Fire and Ash, and I ended up having to watch it over 2 nights just because like it's a 3 hour and 21 minute movie. I just have the patience to sit there and watch the whole thing from start to finish. I'm not sure where James Cameron can go with this anymore. The first Avatar was amazing. It was groundbreaking. It achieved so many different things, especially if you got the opportunity to watch it in 3D. Like it was phenomenal. Um, the second one, it was okay. The third one was basically like the second one. Um, I don't know like where else he can take this story. But we'll see. That's not what I wanted to talk about today, but I just like that movie. I'm glad I didn't see it in theaters. I don't know if I could have sat there for 3.5 hours to watch this movie. But and then I would have left just really angry. But at any rate, the one thing that was like, on top of my mind was the was New York and Kathy Hochul putting a 1 year moratorium on data centers. Now, I'm just going to take a step back and just like look at this from kind of the broader view, right? Like there were people out there saying that we need to end fossil fuel production and we need to go green. Meanwhile, they're wearing polyester and spandex and or things that contain polyester and spandex. Um, in the winter, they were wearing these winter jackets when they're on the water, protesting in Alaska, all of which is made by oil. They were on ships which used diesel fuel, um, and like I don't think people like really understand um, like how things are used in their everyday life. Like they just wake up and they're like they hear a bunch of people saying a certain thing and they're like, yeah, I don't like that either. And they spend zero time actually thinking about how the thing in which they're protesting is so instrumental and impactful to their daily lives. Um, Literally everything, whether it's a phone, whether it's, glasses, whether it is the speakers that are on this computer, the video camera, which is recording this, in some cases, the hat I'm wearing with the plastic bill. I mean, all of this stuff requires oil, and people just do not understand like how any of that works. They're just like, yeah, we need to get rid of oil. We need to end fossil fuel production. um, yeah, no. Over time, sure, like that makes a lot of sense over time. At some point in the future, we will run out of oil in the ground. We may, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it's an endless supply there, and wells will dry up over time. But and we'll have to hopefully create other ways of making things. And maybe we'll have better technology to be able to recycle plastics and all this stuff, other stuff, or reuse oil-based products. But as of right now, we don't. And so unplugging that makes zero sense. Now, in the case of data centers, I'm making this video, which is going to get posted online through on three different sites, right? It's going to go on Rumble. It's going to go on YouTube. It's going to go on X. All of that has infrastructure. All of that is sitting in a data center somewhere. It's not magically in the cloud. The cloud is a fictional name given to something to help people conceptualize it leaving their ecosystem. But it is a physical location in which servers are sitting there, both processing data that's incoming and storing things for long term, and then could be processing it to do other things, right? And so, like, literally everything that we do right now relies on the internet, and relies on, more specifically, data centers. Um, and so, while there is this very weird kind of caring right now about AI data centers. Like nobody, and I talked about this in another video, nobody cared about data centers before. Northern Virginia had a crap ton of data centers. New Jersey got a ton of data centers after 9/11 for a multitude of reasons, as well as after Sandy. And there are other areas in the country that saw a data center explosion because they're low risk areas. Think of Colorado, think of Arizona, think of New Mexico, think of Southern California, or even Texas. Like these are areas that don't have much in the way of natural disasters. And so they're perfect places to put data centers, and that's why there's a ton there. Um, Now, data centers have been growing because our consumption of space within data centers has been growing. Again, I will use the phone as an example. You take a photo, you have an iPhone, you have iCloud. Uh, that is going to the cloud and it's going to a data center. It could be getting replicated over two different data centers for redundancy purposes. And so like there's that. You have a Samsung phone, very similar. You're uploading things to the cloud. You're saving them to the cloud so that you don't have to use storage locally on your device. Before the phones were connected in an easy way to the cloud, you were storing things on your phone, and then you'd run out of memory, and so that was a problem. And then iCloud came out, and other things that are very similar, and that enabled people to just continue to basically push things to the cloud. Places like Facebook exist, and Instagram, and all these other places where not only are you taking photos on your phone and storing them in the cloud to back them up, to be able to pull them down and reduce the amount of storage allocated on your personal device, you're also then pushing them to social media, and that becomes a storage area as well, which needs to host the website, which then needs to process incoming data, which then needs to have storage that sits behind it. That is where your account sits, which again is probably replicated over 2 or 3 different data centers for redundancy in case of an outage at one. And so like then you add AI on top of it, and then there's an explosion of a very specific kind of data center and a very specific kind of compute infrastructure and storage infrastructure. The data centers that we use for these devices and for websites and things like that generally don't require the same level of compute that, say, AI does. We don't like when you send a request for a website or you want a website to load, it doesn't take a lot of memory and a lot of processing in order to do that. But when you send in, say, a complicated 3-paragraph, or let's just say in the case of SCOTUS decisions, when you say, hey, can you go summarize this SCOTUS decision, which, by the way, consists of 200 pages, that requires a lot of processing power to be able to come back with an answer, look at it, and then come back with an answer to you that summarizes the entire thing in a couple bullet points. Like that requires a lot of processing power. Now, that could be done in a regular data center like an AWS or Azure or Google data center, or there's a bunch of other neocloud data centers out there as well that can theoretically do it. But you won't get that answer in under a couple seconds or under like 10 seconds. You're going to get that answer in like 15, 20 minutes. And it's going to require a lot of resources, or a dedicated resource at a bare minimum to be able to process that request, go do all the stuff that AI needs to do, and then come back with a response. NVIDIA is creating chips that are process data faster. They have their Blackwell chips out now, and they're going to have other chips out. And that allows for faster responses. These data centers are purpose built with infrastructure that have fast processors, whether they're from AMD or they're from NVIDIA or wherever they're from. They are now processing all of the things all the questions that we have on Google, and all the data that's being processed within Facebook and these other places, so that it can make our lives easier. And there are valid arguments as to how AI is going to affect people in the future, and I think those are legitimate. But we are in a race. We cannot lose this race. Regardless of how you feel about AI, it is here, and it needs to continue to progress. Otherwise, we stand losing out to China, which is, we're kind of doing this right now with them. The only thing that's really holding them back is their access to chips, which they're getting illegally in some cases through other companies. And so, like, if China ends up beating us in this race, it could be very detrimental to the US and our lives in a lot of different ways. I may do another video on exactly how that can happen, but let's just keep it surface level. It is very detrimental to the US to have China in a position to potentially lead. There are no guardrails, there are no brakes on China's advancement in AI. And there could be news articles that's just FUD that's put out from China saying, oh, we did this or we regulated this. Like, no, China's goal is to beat America in the AI race. And if not, stay ahead, which is a scary prospect. And so they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that they are at parity or surpassing us. And us is in the US as a whole. And more specifically, the government, our intelligence agencies, our defense agencies, our war departments, and things like that. If we fall behind, it's not good. It's not good at all. At any rate, there's a lot of other ways in which AI is used as well, or just data center growth, because Hochul's moratorium in New York isn't specific to AI data centers. It's specific to data centers. Data centers growth in general is exploding, even factoring out data center or AI data centers specifically, because of our demand for things to be more in the cloud. The cloud is a data center. And so because we don't delete things, because we leverage all of these online services, when was the last time you got a disk to download software, or to load software, I should say? Never. Everything is in the cloud. Everything is SaaS, which is software as a service for those who don't know the acronym. And so literally everything is moving into a service model in the cloud. No longer are companies creating stuff that resides locally. You download your O365, your Office 365 from the cloud. You get access to it. You get access to it locally after you download it from the cloud, but you're not getting a disk for it anymore. Literally everything. I have a GoPro. No software, download it from the cloud. And you access your GoPro via an app, which is managed in the cloud. And video processing requires a lot of power. In New York specifically, I worked in this world. So after 9/11, New York, well, I'll just say this. I went to a meeting with where I sat in the NYPD's NOC. Actually, it was their office just off of the NOC. So you had to walk through their NOC which is just a better way of saying their entire internet has it's a crazy visual displays of uptime and this, that, and the other, and video feeds and this. And you walk through it to have this meeting. And when you're sitting in the office, you look out. And at the time, you could just see, you didn't see anything uh, because Freedom Tower hadn't been built yet, or at least they were still digging out the rest of the World Trade Center to build Freedom Tower, or build the Freedom Tower. And we were working with, I don't want to say what company I was with, but we were working with them on opening up, it was basically data migrations from the data centers they had in New York City to move them out to Jersey, which, by the way, is now where just about all of the data centers are that are servicing New York companies. And so we're like in the meeting, and he's like, look out the window. He's like, you know what used to be there? He's like, the Twin Towers. And you know where we had our data centers? Right there. And so this is why we're having this meeting, so that we can talk about how we can, not have a situation where a building going down takes out our infrastructure. This was NYPD. And so it was just very interesting. It was also kind of like, oh, I get it now. Now I understand. Now that's NYPD. There's also the entire financial hub, which sits within New York City itself, which runs on basically less than a couple milliseconds of latency that they require to do trades and transact financial business. And basically all of the trading that happens has to be lightning fast, which means that data centers need to be close to where they are hitting the button. And so they couldn't have them in the city anymore, which is where they were. They had to push them out to Jersey because, one, they couldn't have a building going down and taking out their ability to trade, high risk. And then after Sandy hits, it was obvious that basically all of Lower Manhattan, below 42nd Street, could no longer house data centers because of flooding risk. And so, again, they had to move it off to Jersey. Now, I say all this to talk specifically about Hochul's moratorium on data centers. Now, that entire financial hub is what drives most of the revenue, the tax revenue within New York City. They require data centers to be close by so that they are low latency. So they sit just across the water in New Jersey, where it's slightly safer and less of a risk of flooding. But at any rate, data centers, like, they were ever so ramping up the need for data centers. And so, there are other parts of New York State, specifically Buffalo and Albany, which were also places for data centers. Those places, that business will now go elsewhere. Those jobs will now go to another state. When you look at Manhattan in particular and the need for low latency, high bandwidth data centers, like, that business is going to Jersey. It's not going anywhere else north, let's say Westchester or any other place north of Manhattan. And New Jersey is going to win that business. They're going to win those jobs, and New York is going to suffer. Now, there could be the case that New Jersey follows suit of New York. And if that happens, you can expect this, which is a fast exodus of the remaining finance, at least the trading portions of finance, out of New York City. You're going to see, because NASDAQ requires it, the other trading houses require it. They require extremely low latency. And if there's a risk that they can't expand their data center and keep their latency low, that's very detrimental to the entire business. And so they're going to want to think ahead, which they probably already are, which is opening or creating data centers within, say, Florida, for instance. Even though Florida is prone to hurricanes, still a good place for data centers, especially like depending on where you put it in Florida. But also, it's a zero income tax state, which means that all of those businesses, like if your hedge fund or your other ones, like there's tax incentives to moving down there, especially for all of your employees. Um, and so you're going to start to see flight out of the financial sector, more so the financial sector. Right now, you already saw after COVID, um, it was hedge funds. Hedge funds started to move to Florida and specifically Miami and Lake Brickell. And so now you have a bunch of hedge funds that are down there for a multitude of reasons, but mainly because they don't want to have to deal with the BS regulations within Connecticut, within New York State, and more specifically New York City. And that's just one segment. You can have the trading segment essentially just rip itself out of New York and move to another state. Again, this all spawns from the decision around data centers. If it becomes clear that there is a risk to their business by by putting them in a spot where they can't maintain low latency, they are going to bail. And already right now, what you saw, there was exodus because of the Trump indictment for him fudging his financial records, which were verified via a third party, and then ultimately a loan was given, and no harm was no. There was no harm between the two parties. A bunch of businesses already left New York because of that. Businesses like hedge funds left New York because of really ridiculous COVID regulations and high taxes. They fled to places like Texas and places like Florida and Tennessee. Like they've gone to other places that are better for their business. And now we're talking about data centers, which is a significant, the repercussions, the ripple effects go to directly to finance within New York City. And so, you know, New York City, like New York, can't seem to figure it out. They keep cutting off their nose despite their face. This particular move by Hochul, because of some irrational fear around data centers, is going to ultimately contribute to the mass decline that's already happening within the state of New York. And you can view it from right now. They've lost a bunch of high income earners, which were paying a majority of the taxes within the state, even though all of these liberals go out and say, the wealthy need to pay their fair share. Well, the wealthy were paying like like the majority share of the taxes already within the state, and not getting anything in return, by the way, which is why they bailed. Now you had AOC going out and being the face of getting Amazon to not open up their office, which would have brought in a bunch of high income earners and high paying jobs into New York, more specifically into Queens. And that would have also, all of those people would have been getting apartments, which means that real estate taxes would have gone up, which means that all the businesses there that serve those employees, whether it's a dry cleaners, whether it's a bodega, whether it's a restaurant, like all of those places would see increased business and increased money, which is tax revenue ultimately to the state, would have seen all of that by having Amazon move in. Amazon bailed out after AOC and a bunch of other people created an uproar. But at any rate, the data center, the anti-data center, whether it's AI or just data centers in general, that anti-push, I think, in my personal opinion, is being fueled by adversaries. There is no logical reason to prevent AI data centers, or just I'm gonna take AI out of it, just data centers in general from going up, because we are creating the demand for data centers, whether you realize it or not. The same way that people that protest ending oil usage are covered in essentially oil, figuratively speaking, from the clothes they wear to the devices which they carry on them, to the internet in which they use to spread their message, to the ships or the transportation that gets them from point A to point B so they can do their stupid protests. Oil everywhere. Data centers, literally everything we do. Literally everything we do. You'll go to the internet, data center. You want to use your phone, data center. I mean, unless you're living completely off the grid, which is almost impossible, like there's a data center in your life that's serving you and making your life better. And again, I think there's valid arguments about, whether or not AI data centers or data centers in general increase energy costs. Again, I've talked about that in a previous video as well. We are lagging in energy production in the U.S. We need more nuclear power plants. We need to stop with this anti-nuclear push. In the meantime, we need to spin up nat gas and coal-powered power plants to supplement our energy usage, which will drive down energy costs. Nuclear power plants like the one I use here in the Raleigh area keeps our energy costs extremely low. And even here, there's people that are like, oh, we don't want a data center. And they're going to open a data center literally outside of the power plant so that it didn't have to, so you can leverage the same water that the power plant uses, which is a lake, as well as not have to impact the grid and bring that transmission across the infrastructure that's already here. And it would just build its own infrastructure. And yet still people here were like, oh no, we don't want data centers. Oh, they're going to blah, blah. Shut up. Like, I can't with these people. At any rate, on that note, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you think that there should be a moratorium on data centers? Do you think it's not a big deal that we cede AI, our lead in AI, to China? Not a big deal, like whatever. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, keep believing that the best is still ahead for America. Peace out.